Good morning, everyone! Welcome back to the Summer of Magic event. I always start a teensy bit early, so I'm gonna give it some time for everyone to show up. I hope everyone has been having a wonderful week. We've had so many amazing workshops and so many wonderful business, just so many wonderful spiritual biz babes coming together and putting everything together for us. I love it. So when everybody comes in, there is a link up at the top to where you can grab the workbook. If you joined me on Monday, you can just log in with the same information as that you used to grab it, to grab the palmistry workbook, and you can get this one as well. People are coming in, so obviously it's working. Hi, Lena. I need to get your, I need to answer your message. I have it. I've just been getting ready. Can you see and hear me all right? I'm gonna pop this up so I have comments up here. Wave. Wave. Hello. Let's see. Let's make sure there's sound. Yes. Let's see. I know that you're doing your henna stuff today. How is the rest of your week gone for the Summer of Magic? I know it's been super jam-packed. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Let's see. Have the sound and the image. Awesome. So like I was saying above, you can go ahead and click to grab the workbook for today if anybody feels like they want to grab it earlier. If you just log in with the same information that you did by getting my palmistry course, then it's up there. Not the palmistry course, but the palmistry workshop we did today. Hi, Kimberly. Hi, Christina. Good morning. Let's see, I just missed one live from yesterday that I'll watch probably tomorrow. Awesome! I'm glad that you've been able to be up to date. How are you doing, Kimberly? It's a happy, happy Friday. Yep, there's sound. We're good. Awesome. Cool, and I've got comments pulled up. So we're gonna give it a little bit more time. I always start early. Just to make sure. I know this week, because we had a wonderful new moon in Gemini on Wednesday, I went ahead and I cleaned up my space. I got one of those infinity mirrors where when you light a row of candles, it'll go down into infinity because it bounces back and forth. I got one of those. My husband's brother is moving, so he gave it to me because I never used it. So I used that for my new moon ritual and just cleansed and just ready for a whole new month. I love it so much. I know! It's my first time actually using one. It's so fun. Kimberly, order a palm reading, everybody. Rachel's awesome. Oh, thank you. I'm glad it really resonated with you. Yeah, I sat down with Kimberly and I did a video reading for her. The offer that is still available until tonight in honor of the event. Feel free to grab it. I have spots open, so just go ahead and grab it. Christina, live replays will be available all next week too, so plenty of time to watch. Exactly. I know after next week, I will be taking my personal ones down, so be sure to grab them. And we will give it a little bit more. Yeah, I love that. The reason I use it for the new moon rituals to make everything more powerful and I feel like that mirror effect just bouncing everything off, especially because it's a clear mirror, was super, super fun. And it really amplified the energy in the room so much more than it normally does. So it was fun. I'm definitely going to be using it for all of my rituals now. It's super cool. And I'm especially excited because I got to use my elemental guide for my ritual on Wednesday. So we're going to be going over our own elemental guides today, and it's going to be super fun. So before we even get started, because we still have a couple more minutes, who here has ever heard of an elemental spirit guide? I know everybody that's in my academy that's here is ahead of the game, because they probably have. But who here has heard of elemental spirit guides? We hear of spirit guides, but not elemental ones. I know that I'll talk about my introduction to my guide. They're certainly a little bit out of the ordinary. They don't show up quite the same as all the other different kinds of guides that you can have. So this is going to be very fun. Hi, Denise. Hi, Rolly. I'll come back and catch the replay. That's okay. Christina, me. Yay. Kimberly, yes. Don't know very much. That's okay. That's okay. We're going to go over it. Lena, yes, because you're ahead of the game. Because you're one of my academy students. I love it. Okay, so to give an introduction, again, in case nobody watched the palmistry one earlier this week, hello, my name is Rachel Arazo, and I love to work with people to magnify their natural psychic abilities and expand their divination practice, and just revamp their personal and spiritual beliefs, because they trickle down into everything. And when you revamp yourself, you revamp all the other energy around you. And so I first got started in 2014. My roommate chucked a tarot deck at my face. It's actually this one. That's right here. Just chucked it at my face and said she didn't want any more. And my husband, boyfriend at the time, actively encouraged me to get started, and here I am. And then I've been teaching divination and, well, intuitive divination and psychic development for the past 2 years. And it's super fun, and I love to help people in easy and fun exercises, because if it's not fun, why are we going to do it? And it's specifically to unlock their intuition. I use my theater side because I do have a degree in theater. I'm a director, I'm an actress. I'm trained operatically in classical music, in music composition. I do all kinds of things in the worlds of the arts. And I use all of that to help other people learn how to read tarot and other modalities without memorization. Because who wants to look at flashcards all day? Not me. And I also love providing a supportive and just divination-centered community where anybody that wants to transform their practice, take things up a notch, is welcome to come. And it's actively encouraged to experiment with your divination practice in all kinds of different ways, so all-inclusive. And in fact, if you enjoyed working with me this week in the palmistry workshop and today for the elemental guide one, I have a link up top to my Facebook group where we have monthly workshops about that. So today I'm going to be sharing with you how to meet and effectively work with your elemental spirit guide. I'm going to be teaching you exactly what an elemental spirit guide is, because a lot of people don't know, and how the guide will match your energy. I'm going to show you different ways to introduce yourself, because it's not all cookie cutter, and it's supposed to match you and your practice and your style. And plus the various forms that they'll show up in, because they're not all the same. And then also how to build even an astral plane for you to go and work with your guide, which is cool. Very few of us know how to build actual astral planes where we can go meet with spirits. So this is going to transform your practice completely. So let me catch up on comments super quick. And I have my notes over here, so I'm going to keep periodically looking over here, so I remember things. Okay. Let's see. Amandine, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. It's kind of when I started reading, I bought mini decks. Yeah. No, she chucked it at me, and then I went out and bought my own online, because I didn't have a store near me, but I love it so much. Hi, Anna. Nope, you're not missing too much, just the introduction. Hi, Leticia. Ah! I'm at the laundromat. My cell reception isn't great. That's okay. I'm glad you're here, though. It makes me happy you're here. Hi, Lisa. Lisa has a workshop later on today, everybody. Come see it. Let's see. Kimberly says, never know for sure if when I'm connecting with a guide. We will go over that. We will go over that. So you're right on point. Right on point. That's actually a question a lot of people have. So, first of all, for people who don't know what spirit guides are, let's take care of that first so everybody is on the same page. So, because we are all elemental and energetic beings in this world, right? The way that I believe it, and if you don't necessarily agree with me, that's okay. I really encourage you to sit down with your own beliefs and figure out what you believe when it comes to spirit guides and how they work with us. For me, it's because we're all energy, right? So we always say, oh, I'm feeling low energy today, or this is taking up a lot of energy on my part, things like that, because we are literally made of energy. So we're not the only energetic beings that exist in this world. There are other beings around us, they're just in an ethereal form. And a spirit guide is one of these beings. They can be of many different levels, and they act kind of as a protector or a mentor to living beings. So depending also, like I said, on the level that they are, there are some that are ascended masters that are beyond our plane. Normally they're human teachers that then decide not to reincarnate, and they decide to help multiple people. So like the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, his original form would be an ascended master, while part of him does do the reincarnation process as new Buddhas are born. And same thing with every other religious belief or pantheon, where you have somebody that constantly comes back, like the Dalai Lama. There's an ascended master form and there's an ethereal form of him. So these can also be passed on spirits, such as family members. They can be spirit guides, or they can be animals, which is where we get our animal guides. But all of them must be in a disincarnate form, though. There can be familiars which can inhabit both a physical form and an ethereal form, but we're going to touch on specifically just ethereal forms today. They will consistently watch over you throughout your life, normally in the background, because we live in a society that is completely fear-based, especially when we don't know what's going on. If we don't know it, we can't use our senses, besides our psychic senses, to communicate with these beings, then we're like, no, don't touch it, I'm scared. Ah! Not so much here with the crowd that we linger in, because we're all spiritual workers. But majority of humans will experience signs as messages from their guides or things like that. But if your crown is open and you state that you're ready, your guide will communicate more directly, and they won't be so much in the background. They won't just be a guide that's watching over you, they will actively teach and help you. So, as psychics, we can communicate with our guides normally through clair abilities. Okay? All of us in here have the potential to be psychic, it's just a matter of belief. Just like working with spirit guides is a matter of belief. Okay? So the method of communication will change depending on your own abilities, and will change depending on the guide, to give you a nice basis. Woo, excuse me. There we go. It was trying for a couple minutes. It is possible to have more than one guide. I know a couple people in here that I've talked to personally have a bunch of them. But as you change and evolve throughout your life, excuse me, you may gain or change protectors. Or you might have a bunch at the same time. It's really how much you can handle. Does everybody understand so far the basis of a spirit guide? Let's see. Christina says, bless you, thank you. Following his fears right now. I've been suffering since Friday. I don't know what it is right now. My body's been out of whack all week. I think I put in my contacts this morning. I could see the dust going around, and I'm like, okay. It's all dusty in here. Great, everybody understands. I'm getting hearts. Awesome. So, what I want to get past right now are some misconceptions people have about spirits before we get into specifically elemental guides. When you come from a fear-based platform, like, for example, because I grew up a witness, I was supposed to be afraid of everything. No Scooby-Doo, no That's So Raven, I'm really dating myself on how young I was and how young I actually am. No Danny Phantom, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, none of that, because it was witchcraft and it dealt with ghosts. Even though Scooby-Doo technically wasn't ghosts, they didn't care. I wasn't allowed to watch it. So I grew up with this natural fear base, and a lot of people, especially if they weren't raised in a family where it was okay to exercise your psychic abilities from a young age, you may have grown up with that fear-based mentality. It's okay, but we need to move past that if you want to access your guide. And the reason being is if you constantly believe that a guide is going to possess you or hurt you or they're not real, then they're just going to keep chilling in the background, because they can tell when you are energetically ready to talk to them. That's how come sometimes I'll see students multiple times be like, hey, I'm doing what you're saying. I'm saying before I go to bed, hey, I'm ready to talk to my guide, but are you actually ready? Because otherwise they won't come forward. If you have any kind of fear in yourself, that same kind of fear that deals with Ouija boards and talking to spirits in general and mediumship, if you have that fear about any other kind of spirit, your guide isn't going to come forward because they know you are not energetically ready. So if you feel like you can't release that fear, then I really encourage you, while we still have some of the power from the new moon lingering around, to sit down with your beliefs, write out all your fears, burn it, throw it in the toilet, whatever you got to do to get rid of it. I encourage you to do that. That way it's done, and then you officially have a clean slate for your guide to come forward. Okay? If you approach fear with it, it's not going to work. You can try as much as you want, it's not going to. Let's see. Understood. Awesome. Yes. They're approving what you're saying. Yes. They know what I'm talking about. Yes. I know the feeling growing in a restrictive way. Yeah. And it can really set you up for failure. So just really address it, clear it all out of your system, and then your guide will be like, hey, she's doing the work, or he's doing the work, and they actively want to work with me. The effort will be noted. Kimberly, same for my born-again upbringing. I was left alone a lot, though. Yeah. It's super difficult sometimes. Anna says, my family has never been very spiritual, not religious either. It made me feel hanging in the air, not knowing anything or finding an answer. It changed pretty much when I reached 20. Yeah, and that's sometimes it takes you that long to actually find an answer for yourself, and that's okay. As long as you have processed through it, that's the big thing here. Christina, totally. I was frustrated for so long that I wasn't able to do mediumship, but once I addressed the fear, now I'm a walking channel for deceased spirits. Exactly. And you're going to feel it open up, and you're going to have to put up your hours and tell them, nope, back up. And the only one that will be able to move in and out of those hours will be your guide, if you allow it. Kimberly, yes, sometimes I think my childhood fears kept them at bay. That can happen. My mom once saw an angel and immediately prayed, thank you, God. But you know, I don't like that sort of thing. She passed on that fear. Okay. Yes, sometimes it can be passed from unintentionally or intentionally from your parents onto you or from friends onto you. I just really encourage you to write it all down, breathe, process it, release it, and you will be all set from here on out. So, elemental guides, because they are specific within the realm of spirit guides and can enter the world of fantasy like this magical event is all about. We have 4 different elements, basically, within our realm, correct? Unless you believe, you know, in the more Chinese feng shui type of elements where we include metal and wood and things like that, which is why they have more spirit guides. That's okay. We're going to go based off of fire, water, air, and earth, though. We're going to get that basis for you. Because we have those 4 elements, we do have 4 different ethereal realms that these creatures can live in. And they can become your guides. They are your elemental guides. So these beings really aim to improve your elemental connection to that specific element. You either really resonate with that energy by yourself, or it's an energy they feel you're lacking, so they'll give you a push. And when it's an energy you're lacking, usually you'll have two, one in an element you're strong in and the other that you're not. So you have a nice balance to where you feel comfortable. Appearances of these elements, of these elementals, will change according to their realm origin. Think of any mythology you've heard or fantasy book that you've heard of. We have fire creatures, we have earth creatures. It's all very similar within the realms of the elementals. We come up with these stories based off of folklore and experiences. This is where it's coming from. There are elemental realms, okay? So people usually ignore our connection to the element of spirit, which all guides are a bit of spirit and another element. So now it's time to get out of your head to keep that separate. We have spirit within our own bodies. It gives us our breath. So now we have a natural connection to speak to angels and to speak to deities, like we talked about in the last workshop, and how we can talk about elemental guides in such a very comfortable and calm way. Okay, so approach these guides in this workshop with a very gentle kind of curiosity. Don't let fear rule you. Just be very gentle, almost inner child, sacral chakra, toddler-like exploring. They're being very gentle with it. They're testing the waters to see how it interacts in different ways. Approach it with that mentality, and it will be much, much easier for you. And remember also, if some of you are still afraid, think of it in this light when it comes to anything spiritual. If you are walking down the street and you have a good attitude, you're happy, you're in a bright part of town, you are going to run into like-minded energy and people. That's why this group is a wonderful drama-free zone, because we are attracted to like people that are drama-free, okay? So, but there's a difference if you're walking down the Bronx with a sign saying, "I got $1 million on my chest, come mug me," and you're picking fights with everybody. You're gonna attract a fight. So approach your guide in that gentle mentor-student relationship, or as a friend or a companion. Don't be hostile. Because that will attract the energetic and spiritual neighborhood you will end up in. Okay? So, different elementals, because that's what we really want to know. So first off, we're going to start with air. So air elementals that are within the realm of air are our fairies, our fae, and our wisps. So think of Brave, the Disney movie with the Will-o'-the-Wisp. They are air elementals. They're really hard to see. They flit around the sides of your eyes. I know the first time I saw a fairy, I freaked out. Because I opened up the door and there was this, it was bigger than I thought. It was this big black thing that was flying right in front of it, and it took off as soon as I screamed, because I was like, oh my god, I don't know what that was. It was a fairy. And to me, they will change shape based on what your preferences are. How they show up to me is if you watch Fantasia, the Sugar Plum Fairies, that's what they look like for me. Just little like that, maybe this big. The wings go to maybe that big. It scared me. I was not expecting it. But you can also see them in incense smoke. If you burn some sage and you leave it alone, sometimes you'll see the incense smoke dance, and you'll see them in the smoke. You can also see them in candle smoke. That's why there are some things with rituals that, for example, if you've heard to never blow out a fire on a candle, it's for both the fire elementals and for the air elementals. It's to show graciousness. You either lightly, just with gratitude, blow it out, or you get a candle snuffer, and then you can see it a lot easier. Some ways that you can honor, if you have an air elemental guide, you can create a fairy house with shiny objects, no iron, and those are very good for appeasing your guides. They like shiny things and pretty things and happy things. If you start to leave offerings for your fae guides, be very kind and continue to do so. And they will bless your household. Yes, smoke scrying! That's a wonderful point, Lynn. If you are into smoke scrying, chances are you might have an air elemental guide. Kimberly says, I aligned with the 5th element in West African, Hindu, and Buddhist systems. Always the oddball. That's okay. That's okay. That just means the extra elements that you attune with and that resonate with you will have their own creatures in there. They might be a mixture of these basic elements because that's normally how you get the extra ones. And that's okay. You might just have something within those realms. So for example, if you like the Buddhist elements of wood and metal, that's a combination of earth and fire, or earth and water. So think of creatures within that would be a mixture of those two, and they would match those kinds of elemental guides. That's totally okay. Marissa, I tend to use my connection with trusted helping spirits for a buffer with the dead. You definitely can. You definitely can. Okay, so moving along, water elementals. So this is what everybody loves. We love our water elementals, like our mermaids, and our sylphs, and our undines, and other creatures of the water, okay? So those that attract water elementals as their guides normally are very naturally intuitive, emotional, empathic, and very creative. I have a water elemental guide, and I'll tell you how I first met her. When, like I said, I was a theater major. I'm a director, I'm an actress, and we did a show of, what show was it? Of the Snow Queen. I did multiple parts. All of them, now that I'm thinking about it, were more caring of parts. And my favorite place to be, my most comfortable psychic spot, now that I look back and I know how that feels, is on a stage. Whether there's an audience or not, but especially when I'm by myself, just feeling the energy of all the shows that have been there in the past and all the emotions, that's my safe spot. You put me on a stage and I'm happy. I don't care what role I'm playing. And it was the middle of intermission. I could hear the kids outside because we did the show for kids. There were no techs on stage. Everybody had gone back to the green room to relax during intermission, and I sat and I decided to meditate on stage while I waited for the show to continue. So I was sitting on a rehearsal block underneath the light behind the curtain, and I was just meditating, and all of a sudden I could hear one of the little kids, like maybe 3-4 years old in the front, like on the other side, saying, "Hey guys, look," and trying to get her friends to look up. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look up just in case the curtain's not falling, you know, in case something silly's happening or something's on fire. I look up, and there's a mermaid swimming in the valance. And the shorter part of a giant red curtain that you normally would see on a stage. This just swimming, just chilling. This green and blue and purple mermaid just chilling up there. And at first, I thought I was tripping. I thought I needed some water and I was dehydrated. And then I realized, because I had been trying to find my guide for so long, specifically my elemental guide, I'm like, oh, I have a water elemental for my spirit guide. Oh my god. And she stayed up there the rest of the show through all my costume changes. No one else could see her, but she sat with us for the curtain call. And it made me feel like I was crazy for a minute, but I wasn't. And she likes to do that, especially when I'm on Aranum. She likes to mess with things behind me and freak out everybody on the hotlines. But she's fun, and I got a water elemental, and she literally will swim through the air. She has a sense of humor. So creatures like these sometimes will do that and swim through the air. You will see them, especially if you live near a lake or near the ocean and you really love the water, you'll see them in the water. Or they'll show up in dreams, because dream work is connected to water. So keep an eye out. If you do have a water elemental as your guide, they will be very playful and very snarky. But endlessly caring, and I've had her since 2014. It's been 4 years. So yeah, she was just swimming through the air. And it was fun. So that's an example of a water elemental. fire elementals. I've seen these recently and they were really cool. So elementals of this branch normally look like fire salamanders, like lizards of all different types of sizes, or fire nymphs. For me, they look like the fire elementals that you would see in Skyrim, because I'm a gamer. So on a couple of the missions, you run into the fire creatures of the world of Skyrim. They look like those for me. But again, they will change depending on the more comfortable depiction that you have. I've seen a couple look like Calcifer from Howl's Moving Castle. And just a little ball of flame. And they sometimes look humanoid, sometimes don't. Those that attract fire elementals, though, are more comfortable in action and work than thought processes. So if you are go, 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 you will attract a fire elemental. They're very passionate and creative and very fun-loving, but they do have a temper. During this new moon and for my last full moon one, when I burned ash, so when I have a letter and I burn the paper and I release it, especially when I did a goddess ritual for my patron goddess, I looked at the ash because it was curving and twisting and the embers were flowing, and I saw a couple little lizards popping up in there. So you can see them if you look very, very closely. And the more that you like to fire scry and look into candlelight, or like to look at the way that it twists and turns within campfires, bonfires, or ashes, you'll see them pop up. And they really like embers and to just slowly creep along. They're normally reptiles though, so even if you don't see a salamander and you see a snake, it's a fire elemental. And earth elementals. These are my favorite, even though I have a water one. I love the earth ones because I have a thing for centaurs. Centaurs are my favorite. And earth elementals can show up as centaurs, or they'll show up as these elf-looking gnomes and trolls. These I don't see as often, even though I live near the mountains. I'm in Colorado Springs at the base of Pikes Peak. So sometimes I see them, but only when I go up to Manitou Springs, that is up in the mountains. Or the few times that I have been camping up there, they like being in the forest. They don't like coming down because a lot of them are actually pretty big. And it's not very easy to hide. They like having more concrete forms, even for ethereal beings, okay? So depending on how deeply rooted in the earth element that you are, or how stubborn or grounded that you are, that'll determine which of these appear. You know, because centaurs are really, they're kind of in the middle. Gnomes are more passive, and you'll see more often in people's lawns and things like that, and they're more mischievous like Fae are. But especially the trolls, if you have a troll for a guide, you will have to really live in a mountainous region or in a really rural region on a farm or just someplace away from society because they don't like being near other people. Okay? And if you don't live in those regions, they can sometimes show up in dreams and visions, but majority of the time it's out in nature, really connecting with the earth. So if I were to go out to Garden of the Gods or Kissing Camels here in Colorado, I would see them more. When I lived down near the sand dunes in Alamosa, I would sometimes see them. But again, they are in rural areas, so they're a little bit harder to see unless they decide to show up in a dream. Does anybody have questions so far? I know this really feels like it's in the realm of fantasy, and that's why I love it so much. But this is where some of that belief comes into play. If you start getting in the habit of believing that you're psychic and believing you have these abilities and believing in yourself as a magic worker, spiritual worker, and in your business, it'll be so much easier for you to start believing in the elemental creatures and the elemental guides. So give me hearts or likes if you are understanding. If you have a question, pop it in the comments. No questions, you're crystal clear. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, connecting with your guide. So, let's say you want to figure out which one you have that is a part of you, part of your energy, matches your energy. And how can you communicate with them? So first of all, divination is a wonderful start for someone brand new. And even as a part of the book that I give you, you can get it in one of the links up there. You can use a tarot spread to find out the personality, what element they're a part of, everything like that. And you can tell that usually from the suit that pops up. If they are still purely ethereal and have not picked an element for you, they would come up as a major arcana. But what I really recommend first is research. Okay, look into different mythologies and have fun with your fantasy, because the more you know, the easier it is for an elemental guide or spirit guide of any kind to communicate in your language. It's easier for them to translate. Okay? So even like, think of it this way. If anybody here is an Abraham Hicks fan, I am a firm believer that all she's doing is talking to a spirit guide and channeling through a spirit guide. Okay? And how she got started, she would hear things, or no, her face was moving and her nose was writing out a name. That's what I remember. And then she'd hear, and then she'd type. She's just channeling through a spirit guide, and now the better her vocabulary is and the more that she can read and communicate with people, you notice the more Abraham has to play off of, which is why he constantly says, I love this vocabulary. This is the perfect word to define what I need. It's a spirit guide trying to find the right words. So think of it in that perspective. You're trying to communicate with this being and they're trying to give you information through your psychic senses. The more you expose yourself to different senses or different words and different experiences, the easier it'll be for your spirit guide to talk to you, no matter what your ability is. So even if you have psychic smelling, which is a thing, go out and experience different smells and perfumes, and your guide will have a better vocabulary to talk to you about. Yes, yeah, Abraham is a singular name for a collective group of guides and beings, yeah. It's just, for me, the easiest way to explain it, it's just like she's channeling. Or if you watch, or not watch the movie, but read the book for Eat, Pray, Love, she is talking back and forth with her spirit guide through automatic writing. She writes down the question and then the guide writes it down too. It's very similar. But because she has more of a vocabulary, because she's a journalist and she's a writer anyway, it's easier for her to actually talk to somebody back and forth like that. Does everyone have an elemental or spirit guide? Yes, that's a very good question. Everyone does. Just like everyone has a daemon, everyone has an angelic guide or a guardian angel, everyone also has an elemental spirit guide. It just depends on what you want to work with at that time. They will move to the forefront and to the background. If you have been consistently calling them and researching yourself and just finally get the connection through, sometimes you'll see a bunch of them at once and you will have to pick which one you want to work with first. But everyone does have one, yes. I still need to see that movie. Yeah, the movie sometimes portrays it, but especially in the book, anytime she's depressed, she sits down and has a conversation with herself, and she even says, I don't know who this is, I don't know if it's myself or whoever it is or God. It's pretty much automatic writing. That's what she's doing. She just doesn't know the name. Yeah. In the movies, they don't portray it as well, but I'm glad I read the book because it does it in the book so much more. Let's see, Marissa says, I connect with lizards. They're all over Florida where I live. Yeah, so, especially because Florida's hot, you very well may have a fire elemental as your guide. Lena, I miss lizards so much now that I live in the mountains. You might still have one as a guide. That'd be fun. Let's see, Anna says, I've seen a troll, but it could have been some kind of forest creature. But she looked like an old woman in the company of some man and they were picking blueberries or something. Never seen anyone since. Yeah, it very well could have, you might have two guides that may be trolls. Especially because the area that you live in, Anna, it definitely could be possible because you're in such a rural area of Switzerland. So, not Switzerland, Sweden. I can't remember at the moment. It's one of those two, up north, where it's cold. So it definitely could be. Let's see, Sweden. That's what it is. Amandine says, I understand why I was so scared of lizards. I still am. Oh my god, I don't like them, but they would be everywhere. I grew up in the Caribbean. Oh, okay. So, fire probably wouldn't be what's best for you. You probably have some kind of block with fire, and especially if you have issues with drive or getting things done, and you're more into feeling as things go, you probably have a water elemental. Think of how your personality is, and that will normally determine exactly what kind of guide you have. Let's see. Switzerland, Sweden, same thing. No, I'm sorry. Lena says, I've heard so much about that book movie and I've never wanted to read or watch it. That's okay. It's just an example. You're good though. Okay, so, but really, really research. And you'll notice that I'm like that. I'm like research, journal, things like that. Even ask questions of yourself and that'll help determine things. Especially journaling about yourself and how you believe the world works. If someone had to be you and step into your shoes for a day, what would they have to believe? What would they have to believe about magical creatures? What would they have to believe about spirituality? Or how often you go get your toes done? Things like that. Whatever questions that you want to ask yourself, what would someone have to believe? And that will help you determine your personality more if you don't know, and that'll help you determine what your guide is. Yes, I live close to the forest, river, and mountains are not that far away. Yeah, Anna, you're in the midst of nature, so you're more likely to see a troll than anybody else out here, probably. And then for the last one, a really effective way is to create an astral plane. So when I say this, I don't mean this is a part of astral projection. It's really more going into a meditative state and creating your safe haven. Creating a place that would be your dream home or where you feel most comfortable. And you would be in your purest energetic element where you just feel 100% at peace. No judgment. You might be by yourself. You might have family, things like that. So like, for example, for mine, it's always some little cottage in the middle of nowhere where I'm the neighborhood green witch. Everybody comes to me for the herbal remedies. I have a giant cauldron in my kitchen that's always cooking something for my family. I always have a hearth. But that's how mine looks. Some might have a more modern home, or just an office or a place in nature. It might just be a park somewhere where you just feel 100% safe. And that would be where you would go to meet your spirit guide and you would have your sessions and you would talk with them. I always sit down with mine and have a cup of tea. Always. And to lead you through this, I do in the workbook have an optional guided meditation that if you want to grab it, it's $17. It's a part of my Crone Academy for our Spirit Guide chapter where I lead everybody through. Feel free to grab it. If you've already grabbed, I know a couple people in here have already grabbed my big pack of meditations. You already have it. You can go and lead through it and then you can meet your elemental guide. But creating a comfortable space for yourself is the best way to meet your elemental guide. Because then you get a really vivid picture, you're talking back and forth with each other, you're connecting through your psychic senses, and it's really the best way to tune yourself in. So I really challenge you with this workshop, what time are we at? To create a ritual of meeting your guide. Okay, so sit down. If you're a tarot reader, do the tarot spread. I've also made sure it works for Lenormand and for runes. Sit down and have a discussion. What is your personality? How can I work with you? What can we make with this relationship? And really work with them on a regular basis. Because a physical mentor like myself and like Christina, we can give you a wonderful starting point. We can give you everything that you need to do to prepare yourself. We can give you action steps to break past your own personal blocks and beliefs. We can give you a really great foundation for psychic development and ritual work and give you exercises and all kinds of stuff. But an ethereal mentor is going to help take you even further. So it's really two kinds of teachers that you need. You need both somebody that's going to give you all the basis and going to put your physical self to work, and your spirit guide is going to help put your spiritual self to work and going to help you push your own vibrational limits, going to help you manifest things that you want in your life and your business a lot more, and they're going to help you move past your doubts and your trauma. So I really recommend making some kind of ritual of it. So definitely go through the spread that I provide. Okay, and you can even make a little altar for your spirit guide. So let's say you have somebody in water like I do. Go get some seashells, or I used to have snow globes of dolphins that I had all the time. Actually, up there, I've got a dolphin in my office. So have those kinds of things around you. Put out cups of water with a little sea salt in them, things like that, and just leave an offering for your guides. They will let you know exactly what kinds of offerings that they would want. If you don't have the time for that, because we focus on easy everyday things, it's very similar to deity work. So wake up in the morning, hello guide, or if they give you a name, hello, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you will guide me through today whenever I call on you, because you're my best friend, you're my teacher, and I know you'll be here for me. And it's true, they are. They've been with you since you were born. And they'll change shifts and change which ones match for you, but they have been there for you. So feel free to call on them. And feel free to include them in your magical workings and planning your business. I regularly, once a month at the minimum, usually it's once a week, I sit down with my cards and I write out a question and I shuffle and I'll have a conversation back and forth with my guide. Like, what do I need to know right now? You can determine what decks to do this for. I like to use my Dreams of Gaia because it has the chakras and the third eyes, and it's very spirit guide for me when they need to lay down the law. Or I'll use my Spirit Song Tarot, and that one is such a very gentle shaman voice for me. So I'll use both of those, and I'll sit down and have a really great conversation on where I need to go. Especially, for example, if I have a dream that I have no idea what it means. It's a great way to do that. Or if I feel there's some spiritual lesson that needs to be had, I'll sit down with my guide and have a conversation. Just make it a regular occurrence for you, and it'll help you grow. Let's see. Amandine says, great guidance, thank you. That fear of lizard was passed on to my parental grandma. Ah, that's probably why too. I want to work on that fear. No, you're very welcome. The fact that you've acknowledged that fear already has put you leaps and bounds ahead of everything else. So you're doing wonderful. Lena says, Lena says, I probably live in a troll place too, but Anna is far more north than I am. You probably are. If you live up in the mountains and you're in kind of a rural area, you most likely do, especially with how many plants you have around you. The earth elementals really love the things around you. So you probably either have a fire or an earth. Do the spread and find out. It'll help you. Let's see, Kimberly says, I have a forest space from my childhood I go to in meditation. When I tried to find a spirit there, I felt a really strong connection to the grasses, like every individual blade as separate beings and welcoming. Are the grasses connected to any type of elemental? Earth. That's very much earth. And like I said, elementals can show up in all kinds of different forms. Just because I have experienced these does not mean these are the only ones. This is where the research comes into handy, because there are all kinds of different creatures of different sizes and different origins. Okay, so for example, and it also depends, like, for example, the phoenix of Eastern origins look different, behave different, or are a part of a different element than of the Western origins. They're not made of fire. They're not rising from the ashes. They're more of a dark omen over there. It's not something more victorious. Think of it in that sense. So there could be something of a different mythology that resonates with you that could very well have something to do with the grass. I would say it's an earth elemental because it's grass, but it could because you mentioned that you really like the Buddhist and Eastern mythologies and their way of the elements, you could have a wood spirit that is trying to talk to you as well. And they could be a tree, or they can show up as bugs, like grass bugs or stick bugs. They could. It just depends on what would be calling you. And your specific one will pop up to you in a different way. And you'll feel like you're crazy, but don't believe that you're crazy. Otherwise, they'll take off and they know you won't be ready. So do some research on that, because that's super, super interesting. Lena, I live at 1,000 Mile High, so definitely. Oh yeah, you have some guides up there. Let's see. Kimberly says, I actually picked up the Victorian Fairy Tarot for this purpose a couple years ago. It reminds me of my grandmother who's passed. That's really wonderful. Having that specific energy, because not only does it give you an ancestral guide from your grandmother passing, but that also helps you with an element. So, that you have so many different ways that you can branch this, and it'll just help fill you out so much more. I love it. Meters, not miles. Metric stuff here. That's right. So, to help along with this, I also gave some book recommendations. Let me actually pull them up. The first one I have shown in this group before, and that's Wood Nymph Seeks Centaur. For those that are new to incorporating mythology into your everyday life, this is a really fun dating guide, especially if you really love doing love readings, because it takes mythological creatures and it puts them into an everyday perspective. So, for example, if you pay attention to the if you read the book, it first helps you figure out what specifically you are, whether you're a woman or a man. This is written more for women, by a woman, but it does give context for males as well. And I really love this, so no matter what your sexuality is, who you decide to love in this world, it gives pairings for that. So if you're two women or you consider yourself a woman, it gives female-female relationships and mythological creatures. It also does the same thing for those that identify or are men. So no matter what you believe, it's a wonderful way to get started for mythology. And again, it's called Wood Nymph Seeks Centaur. You can find all the book recommendations in the workbook link. Go join that Thinkific, because you'll get the replay after it's all done in there, and you'll be able to get all the book recommendations, like for the palmistry one. I do give some books for mythological creatures and they're just really big encyclopedias, so you can learn all the origins. I really recommend stopping by your local library, if you have one, or going online to a library and checking out ebooks for finding out different mythologies. Because that'll help you get a really, really good basis of what kind of creatures that you're going to run into, because they come according to what you believe. And other books, we have The World of Lore, Monstrous Creatures by Aaron Mahnke. This one. Bloop. This one. Gives you monstrous creatures of all different kinds. And it helps give you a really good basis for different types of creatures. Earth's Daughters by Betty, not Better, by Betty Bonham Lies. And that one was up here somewhere. Nope, it's right here. This one. It looks like this. And this is more of the Greek one. It's stories of women in classical mythology. A lot of it does go over mythological creatures, because if we think of deities and such, they help create some of these creatures. So if we think of the goddess Nox, she created so many of them. If we think of Medusa in Greek mythology, she has created some of those creatures are her children. We think of the goddess of, well, the monster, but the goddess Arachne, she's a creator of spiders, which could very well be a mythological creature. It could very well be an elemental guide, depending on what it is. So Krista, you're the spider lady. Your elemental guide may very well be a spider. And you'll have to figure out which element that actually is. I'm getting like an air vibe there. There's all kinds of things. Yep, there is a written list of the books already in the link up top. So you don't have to worry about remembering all of them. Just click the link up top to take you to the workbook. There's also a link up there if you want to continue working with me that will take you to my Facebook group. Feel free to come in. We have workshops like this all the time, centered mainly around divination. Yeah, just answer the questions so I know you're not a robot and we'll be good. But join the link up there. If you grab the palmistry workshop earlier this week, just log in with the information you already put in. You don't have to do a new email, and you can grab this, and it'll be for free. Kimberly, you got the book at home from the last time you recommended it. So much more incentive. I love it. Yay. I was totally obsessed with monkeys as a kid. Is that an indication I may have a monkey guide? As an animal guide, for sure. I would actually talk to Chelsea about that, because she's our animal guide expert here in the group. Let's see, any other? Does anybody else have any other questions? This one, I'm glad we didn't have it cut out. But this entire experience has been incredibly fun. I love it so much. I always love doing collaborative events like this with everyone in the masterclass and here in the group. So thank you so much for coming. Please do come today. I believe we're announcing prizes today, but we also have Lisa after this talking about dragons, and then Christina's going to talk about unicorn magic. I'm so excited. No questions. Awesome. Let's see. Is there anything else? No. I appreciate it. I hope everybody really enjoyed, and I will see everybody in the Facebook group. Bye!